Aye. All right.
Mr. Chair, we have 3 motions to move as coming out of the executive session. Number 1, I move that we authorize the leave without pay request as presented and discussed. Number 2, I move that we approve the exceptional placement request as presented and discussed.
In the prosecutor's office.
In the prosecutor's office, yes, thank you. And number 3, we just notify or authorize our attorney to move forward with planning and development as discussed in regards to the gravel pit in Inca.
We have a motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, Bonner.
Yes.
You're up. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us your concern.
Okay. My name's Bonner Morrison. This is my wife, Devaney Morrison. I'm here to ask for some reimbursement costs on a driveway that was sustained damages from the acts of the county. Yes.
Okay. Kyle, why don't you come on up too?
Al Burmster, Public Works Director.
Okay, comments?
To give you a little more information on it, that in the last 16 or so years, that road has had some, we're talking about Dempsey Creek Road, has had some asphalt lifts done on it, which equated to like 5 or so inches of new asphalt coming in, so that created an angle, more of an angle into the approach that Mr. Morrison had to his residence.
Okay. Was it still usable?
So certain vehicles it was usable. I come up with the actual measurement. It was 5.5 inches and 2 feet, which equivalates to about 23% grade, which the maximum grade on all of the roads is 10% max. So we're 2.5 times the grade on that. Kyle informed me that the county has a standard of 8%. So if you go by the county standard, according to him, we're 3 times the amount of slope.
Was there a previous discussion though between you two and the county was going to come and take care of it?
Yeah, so I've got an email I'd sent you guys, and it's kind of got some of the history on what went forth before, I guess, the last part of this discussions when you guys come out and talk to me. So if you guys want a copy of that, I'll send them out to you. I don't know if anybody read any of that stuff, but it's the information about what the contacts back and forth, and that my last knowledge is that they would be in touch with me and fix it. So in my mind, they saw the problem, they acknowledged the problem, and that they would fix it. So the issue now is I'd waited 60 days and finally started to tear it out and do it myself. Then I'd sent this email to you guys requesting damages payment back from me having to fix the county's mess or responsibility that they failed to do. After that, we've been back and forth with Kyle, and they come up with this, that it was planned for September, the fix, and that I jumped the gun. And during this September fixing, the neighbor's driveway just south of me is the same issue, and they would take care of that while they were out there. As of today, we're October 10th, and that driveway has not been touched, which puts us almost out 120 days from the first discussion.
The whole September thing, though, wasn't told.
Yeah, I don't remember
That
any
wasn't-
information told about
It was
September,
just, yeah,
but it
we're
was
gonna get to
scheduled.
it, but we're busy right now.
Okay.
So
But
the
before I
September, I don't know where
attempted
that
to-
came from.
before I attempted to tear this out and take it on my own to do the work, I'd witnessed the county was down fixing a washout caused by an independent contractor. And so that bothered me, that that's a priority to fix another contractor's mess instead of the county fixing their own problems. And so my issue is in my mind, it was not going to happen. And this September issue almost proves that point, that it hasn't happened. I mean, I don't know if
Any
Kyle
other
wants
comments?
to elaborate on, or,
So there was a little bit of communication back and forth between our supervisor down south area, and that they didn't get connected and stuff, and so Bonner came to my office, and we got a couple people out there. When they came back the next morning, we have our morning discussion. They said that everything was good, we got it figured out. We are in the middle of our paving and chipping season, and so it would be September, but we got it figured out. We asked him if he needed some temporary fix or something until then, but no, we were good, and we would look at it September. And that's where I left off with it. We could have probably had some lack of communication, or I could have sent an email of what was discussed at that point in time, but I did not. But that's where, as the county was figuring, when we got to it, we got to it. On the flooding thing that is the county's problem. That wasn't, I mean, if it comes off of a private area, whether you want to say it's that contractor or whatever, but we had flooding issues, and yes, we were taking care of a lot of areas when we were dealing with the flood.
Questions? Comments?
I'll wait for a minute, John. Go ahead.
John?
What was the date of this conversation you had about doing it in September?
He came into our office on June 13th. That same day.
13th of
June 13th of 2024, this year. That same day, I had 2 of my employees go out on site and visit with me.
And then, because we're in the midst of all this work, did you convey to him, did you tell the Bonner and these guys that you were gonna do this in September? What did you tell them?
That was, so I got so after any of my personnel goes talks to them, they write up what they talked about, and then they give it to me. So I have their description of what the conversation was for
So
that.
you didn't actually have the conversation?
I did not.
But you're saying you got a report where some of your employees talked to them and said, we're gonna do this, and they're claiming said they were gonna do it in September?
So both of their reports stated pretty much the same thing. That we were in the chipping season when we got into paving, and we had our paving equipment out and doing that stuff, and we have to still schedule it with the hot mix plant too. There's parts to that, that it would be in September.
So the reports that you're going off of, and I'm assuming you went back and talked to these employees and confirmed that they actually stated, we'll do this in September. Did they actually make that statement? Do we know or do we not know?
They did make that statement in writing and in my morning meeting the next day.
But you don't recall, so you remember talking to these employees?
I do. So they were standing out there, and this was on June 13th. And in fact, I believe his name's Dustin Mark, called me back that afternoon and said, yes, they got authorization to pay for it and they would fix it. But the last I had heard that they were chipping, and it would be at least 2 weeks until the chipping was done, and they would be in further or future contact with me. So the next communication I had was when I sent this email on September 2nd. So it went from June 13th, not a word from anybody, until I'd done the work in the middle of August, and then sent you guys an invoice and this email, and I believe That's when Kyle reached out to me on September 3rd. And that was the first time I heard anything about September deadline, and that I had just jumped the gun 2 weeks early.
So your recollection of the conversation, just to make sure I understand it correctly, is that you're talking to these guys, they say, yeah, this is a problem, we're gonna fix it, maybe here's how we're gonna do it, or whatever.
Yes.
We'll do it when we're done with chipping and sealing. Did they say something like that, or?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. And I knew that the county was over by the high school.
Right.
Oh, and they were doing chip sealing. I get that. But I also know that the asphalt season is pretty slim. I mean, asphalt season goes from May, middle of May sometimes. You're very lucky if you can get into November. There's been multiple years that the hot plant shut down. It all relies on weather. So in my mind, dealing with concrete and asphalt my whole entire life is why you would put a schedule for asphalt clear at the very, very end of the season, which June and July and August is prime season for that. So I didn't understand where this September conversation come about, because we're kind of getting into borrowed time even now. And during this September conversation, that we kept being told that while we're out doing when we were scheduled to come do yours, we'll fix the neighbor's problem. But that still hasn't been addressed, the neighbor's problem. As of today, the only thing that's been touched is what I've done personally.
And Kyle, going back to you again, so this discussion about the neighbor's property, was that also coming up back?
We haven't discussed anything with the neighbor. I looked at it while I was on site looking at his and said we're having the same, it looks like we have the same situation with one of the neighbors. To me, it's hard because that might have needed corrected 16 years ago. And all of a sudden, I guess what was the big hurry this year, because we same day got with the property owner, got a plan together, I thought, and for something that was irritating or something that had went on for all these years, to me, it would have seemed like we were really just rolling with it and getting something figured out. And so I thought we were all good.
So from your perspective, you had a plan to do this, and at some point here, which, well, we're past September, when?
So in our plan, something like that was done, I have to have budget authority to spend $16,000 on somebody's driveway. I have maintenance authority to do it, an asphalt in the correct of what our standards are. So I have the authority to do that, but that's why I guess it's before you today, is because I can't pay unless I get approval $16,000 for an approach that doesn't actually meet our standards.
Do you still have a plan to fix the neighbor property with your asphalt solution?
We've got available time right now. We were kind of waiting to see what was going on with this.
Uh-huh.
Could I clarify something?
Sure.
What Kyle said. So this happened 16 years ago, but it's been it's been an issue over time. So the first overlay, it was 3 inches. So you could still get cars in and out, or trailers or anything else over that little hump. But then they layered another 3 inches. Well, they come back in and asphalted an angle to that. And I believe, I don't know if Kyle has the information, but I thought he said in 2013. But since then, I have an old classic Corvette, and every time you would drive over it, you would drag the front bumper on this. But the point for the last 2 to 3 years is the asphalt ramp that they put in has deteriorated away so bad that it's ate into the road. So now there's an actual lip, and there's photographs if you guys wanted to see this stuff. So I could not get the car out anymore. I mean, it hadn't been drove for almost 2 years. This year I finally bought tires on it, and to get it out of the driveway, I had to put 2x4s to make a ramp to get up to that. Now, 5.5 inch drop in 2 feet is the same height as a high back curb that you park into, which almost every car bumper will drag on that. And I kept going back to these grades, as these cars are manufactured to drive on a certain amount of slope for clearances and all that stuff. And if you exceed that, of course there's cars that can drive over massive slopes, but there's other cars that can't. I mean, same thing if you went and bought a $400,000 jet boat and the prop's hanging down. That's not going to drive over a 4-inch or 5-inch curb without doing massive amounts of damage.
Okay, I understand that. Now, he just said you guys had put in the original asphalt fix, is that right?
There was, when they bring the asphalt up, they made kind of a angle to it.
They, meaning the Road and
county,
Bridge Department.
the county, yes,
Made
at
this,
that time.
did some kind of an asphalt fix
Yes.
years ago.
Yes, years ago.
And you're saying what he just did himself does not meet the standards. Is there something that's gonna have to be done to make it meet the
Well,
standards?
I mean, you could say that it was a replacement of something that was there that was approved back then. If you were, usually when you're replacing or installing new, you have to go with current standards. That's what I mean by it wouldn't meet current standards. The other thing is, I guess we have a disagreement on this slope that we keep talking about. That's for roads. Not necessarily, because we have drainage in, and if you looked across the county at even anywhere you pull off, you have that, you either have a culvert pipe that conveys that stormwater, or you have a swale coming off of the road. So when the water gets to a point, it goes across there and doesn't run out in the road. And your driveways and stuff like that, any water coming off of them hit that swale and dissipate in the borrow pit, not the road. So that's why you don't have this straight shot. And yes, there's stuff in the county that's not meeting that it's throughout the years. I
Okay.
mean, we work on that as we go.
I just have one more question, Bonner, it's with you. When you reached this point of frustration and decided to just do it yourself, you did not call Road and Bridge and said, hey, I've waited this long, I'm just gonna do it?
No, in fact, so my first communications started with Tracy Hobson that just lives a mile up the road. And I see him drive by in a county truck every day, back and forth. So I went out after no communication for 2 months, and on a Friday morning, I was standing out on the edge of the road cutting the asphalt with a concrete saw. I mean, you can't miss it, road cones everywhere. Tracy actually drove by. And I thought, oh, maybe he'll stop and say something like, quit doing it, or get out of here, we're gonna do it. Nothing. And I get that was on his day off. But so I cut it Friday, I left it. Sunday, I tore it out because I had to work the next week. And it sat there till the following Friday, all tore out, all prepped, road cones blocking it all off, thinking that somebody would stop and say something, like, we're gonna do this, or take advantage of the actual prep work that had already been taking place.
But you did not contact them?
did not
And
contact.
give them notice?
No.
That was all I needed to know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff?
To me, I come from a family that owned a small business for a lot of years, and so I have a very customer service oriented background, watching my dad take care of a lot of things. And to me, this really boils down to two things, and Kyle and I have talked about it. It boils down to a process issue that we have and a communication issue on both parties. I think we have to bear some responsibility for some communication that didn't take place, and same with Bonner. So it's both. So I went down and looked at the stuff and had a good conversation with Bonner, saw exactly what he's talking about, and I can see his point. So I think as a county, we do have some responsibility here, but I don't believe we need to go all the way to what Bonner did, because Bonner's concrete is fantastic, great work, looks fantastic, but that's not what we had talked about. Kyle and his team had talked about doing their replacement. And so I think we have a responsibility for responsibility for what we would have done. And but past that, I don't know if we do.
Well, I believe that the homeowner, Bonner, did it on his own. I don't think that we have the obligation to do it because we've made a commitment to do it later at our expense and take care of it. When somebody chooses to go ahead and do it on their own, I mean,
Can I just
go ahead.
say that it didn't just start in June. He'd been trying to get a hold of somebody since last year. But you can't get a hold of anybody in that McCammon shop. That's why he ended up in Pocatello.
Well, there's three of us right here.
But
Never
I've got
received, never received a single call. And you know me.
Right.
Call me.
Well, but, okay.
That's the deal is,
Well, if you guys don't want to pay for it, then come and fix it how you were gonna fix it. Tear out what he did, come and fix it how you were gonna fix it.
and we're not doing that.
So let me just clarify a little
Don't
bit.
get argumentative with me.
I'm not trying to
or
argue
you're
or
done.
anything, but I know,
Okay.
but I'm asking how long did we wait? When it was, well, we're gonna come fix it, we've had our snow blower destroyed because the asphalt gets wound up in it. So that's also an issue. All winter, last winter, you were digging asphalt out of that snow blower also. So I guess that's the question is, at what point do you just continue to be like, well, when are you come and when is this gonna happen? And you can't get vehicles out and your access is blocked. So I mean, put
Well,
yourself in that
And what
situation.
Commissioner Crowther just asked, did you call him before you started that? And you
I
said
did
you
it
tore
right.
stuff out and you was expecting somebody to stop by.
Let me
Our
clarify
employees
something though,
are
please.
not, they don't have that obligation
Or the
Me-
authority, really.
or the authority.
Sorry, but just when I'm seeing a county truck drive by twice a day, I would assume that he's high enough up, could make a phone call or something, what's going on or what needs addressed. But I've got text messages before Kyle was ever involved for a month and a half with Tracy Hobson. Can you meet with me? Can you meet today? He blows me off for a week. Then he says, I can't, or he goes, I'm on the way to your property. Are you home? I was like, no, I'm not home right now. I'll get with you later. That was a 3-week window until I reached out again. I'm really busy, his response was. I'll get to you this afternoon. I went a whole nother week before I finally went and blew up in Kyle's office. So this back and forth about me having communication is every time I've reached out, I've been told that they'll handle it or they'll get back with me, and not one of it has happened. So I'm frustrated as heck that it would be put back on my shoulders to reach out again and tell them when the last communication that I recall is we're going to do chip and seal and we will be in communication with you. To me, that's in your or the county's hands. They stated that the county will reach out, and they never have for months. I mean, this started. I finally got. So I've been back and forth at that McCowney shop multiple times. I mean, I'm probably on camera, wandering through the shop hollering for people. But I finally got Tracy's phone number from his actual brother and reached out. This was in May 2nd when I finally reached out a text that I can prove. And it went clear until June 13th before they finally showed up. Now, I get it if people's busy. But to me, why didn't Tracy reach out to his boss and say, there's an issue here, this guy wants to talk to me. Can you deal with him? Anything. None of that happened until, I mean, there's multiple texts. Can you meet today, Tracy? Are you around this week? Maybe next week. I'll get with you later. All of those texts back and forth between me and Tracy. So the history of me reaching out goes nowhere. So that, I mean, that's where I'm frustrated.
And I can see that frustration.
Okay.
But I can also say that there's the steps that you could have went up higher and talked to people. But you talked to your neighbor instead.
I didn't talk to my neighbor. No, this would come from Kyle standing in my driveway, that they were going to fix the neighbors. I don't know if they've even talked to the neighbors. This was brought up since this email, when this September date that I had no idea about that was going to be fixed. that they were gonna replace the neighbors. And my issue was, is if it was scheduled to do in September, I already did half the work for them. Why didn't they continue the work that they had said was scheduled? So I have an issue with that whole existence of September being taken care of. That's I guess the issue, is how long do I wait?
And that's where
Okay.
I have some disagreements that, I mean, we're right here.
Yeah.
We get calls every day.
But I also assume that it's the road and bridge responsibility to take care of the roads. I wouldn't think it's the commissioners to deal with
Anytime that
employees
a
and-
department head isn't doing what people think they should be doing, we get a call. I mean, that's, happens a lot.
Definitely learn my lesson.
Comments?
Kyle, who is Tracy?
Tracy's one of our supervisors, and we have a south location in McCammon, which is just where we park trucks. And that's, you know, kind of where Bonner was trying to locate somebody and stuff like that, but it's just an empty shed during the day.
Okay.
My only question, because I've not met him, is this something that he typically has the authority to tell a property owner, we're going to come do this work? Is that something that is standard? Or was he just speaking to somebody that maybe he knows or whatever and kind of speaking out of turn? Because it seems to me that he doesn't necessarily have that authority to tell people that they're
No,
going to...
Tracy does not. When they started to get a couple weeks there of the back and forth on the text, he let his supervisor, Dustin, know. And about at the exact same time that Dustin had become aware of it, that's when he came into my office, and Bonner did. And then when my office informed Dustin there was an issue, he said, yeah, I know, I just heard that from Tracy. So then that's when they went up.
Kyle, what would it cost us to do an approach to fix like?
For us, it's like a couple thousand.
Okay.
So I'll go back to your comments a little bit. If it's not done right now, what needs to happen to make it right to county standards?
Well, what our plan was is to cut the concrete and do an asphalt up to 6 feet out, an asphalt approach. It's not going to be a flat one. So we can't guarantee what kind of vehicle you buy makes it. We have people that build in mountainous areas, and you have to have a 4-wheel drive to get to and from. I can't set how they set up their house.
With this fix that he went and did, is that going to work for?
It would work. We might have worries of hitting it with our snow removal equipment because it's flat and kind of angled, but I mean, I would be good with that he replaced it. And
So you're not seeing a
Same
need to
like
go
the
in and
bigger
tear
one.
it out and do something different?
I mean, if that's what they want, it'll make it.
But I mean, you don't see a need for that from a technical operational
I don't
perspective.
see a great need for it, and the other complication you'll have is if we go up and cut it and do what we were going to do, even though it's new, it's been adjusted now to where if we would have cut it before, we still would have had this, and if we cut it now, there's no way to meet correctly. I mean, we could cut it out and do asphalt, but it'll be in the same slope that the existing concrete is.
Do you still have a plan to go take care of the neighbors?
Yeah, I mentioned that the neighbor has the same problem. I drove the whole road, and out of all of them on that road, for some reason in that little area right there, where they're located, there was 2 approaches that looked like they could use some attention.
So your intention was to get that taken care of?
We're gonna do it together, save money while we're there, we do both. But then this had happened, and so we just kinda, I've had them doing other projects to see where we're at.
So, go do the neighbor, tell me what it cost, and that's what we'll reimburse.
Could I just show you these horrible pictures from start to finish? If you guys take a minute. Jeff's already seen them. He's seen them out there. Would that be okay if I submitted that? You guys want me to approach up there?
Yeah.
Just give it to him.
And they're horrible pictures for sure. The very last is the final completion.
My only concern with leaving it, which again, I'm in favor of leaving it, is as you mentioned with the snow removal equipment, catching that corner, because there was a corner that, at least in my opinion, was a little bit circumspect, that we could very, catch it and damage what's there. So if we do that, I would request that we have some kind of waiver that says if we damage that corner or that piece with snow removal, that you're aware of that and you're okay with that, because I think it's better if we leave it alone, because it's set to work for you, than if we come back and make a change.
No, and I understand that. That's in this, it's in the county right away. I know it's gonna get damaged. I know that. If Kyle wants, I'll go grind it off. I mean, we're talking, it's maybe a half an inch to an inch, maybe, Kyle, that it could catch on a corner.
Well, I would just want
So-
that taken care of so it doesn't get
That's
damaged.
fine, and I understand that. I mean, it happens, stuff gets damaged.
That would be my concern, though, if we leave
No,
it.
that's fine.
So, anything besides what I just said?
I think that's a super fair,
If we go repair the neighbors and equal the cost and reimburse for that cost?
I agree with Commissioner Huff. I think there's, based on what I'm hearing on, it's like a he said, she said to some degree, but it does sound like with this long history here, that there's, we could point to both sides and say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, and so on. So I think we ought to be, there's something on the county on this.
And one of the things I talked with Kyle about from a process standpoint is if they agree to do some work like this in the future, that Kyle himself sends an email to everybody involved saying, this is what we talked about, this is what we agreed. So there is an official paper trail, not text messages, not phone calls, but something like that, so we have a better process for this, so that this doesn't happen.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Go ahead and make the motion.
So I'll go ahead and make that motion that we go ahead and repair the neighbors and bring it up to standards and reimburse the Bonner for the cost that we would incur. Any questions?
No,
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, guys.
All right. Let's talk about the building in Downey, buildings. Come on up. Dan. You're not invited up. Kedron?
I thought you were talking.
No.
She thought she was representing the mayor.
Mayor wasn't invited.
Oh, okay.
This is whether we're tearing the buildings down or not.
Oh, okay. She just told me that, so that's why I was sharing.
Okay. I guess if you have something, go ahead and come up. If you're representing the mayor, do you have something to represent him and say?
Did they just ask me to be here so that I understood what was happening as reporting on?
Okay.
Because you were invited to come to ours and then you couldn't come, so I was asked to come here.
Come here. Okay. Okay. That makes more sense. Thank you. So we've had a discussion about the two buildings. And actually I visited with Dan, and the building that needs to be tore down is the one that has all the electrical power hooked up to it. You went down and looked at them yesterday?
I didn't get.
Didn't
a
make it down
chance
there? So, I talked to Scott the other day. He says storage space is always valuable. So, the other day we had a conversation, rather just to tear them down, get rid of them, beautify the place, or do we spend a little money and put some lipstick on the pig and do something with the outsides and use them as storage units? That's the conversation. Dan?
I feel a lot better about using them for storage. They do need a little bit of work to, they've had some siding that's fallen off and they have a partial roof that's still on one of them, and then there's a partial foundation there from the building that has collapsed there. But I guess my main thing is it's not up to a county standard as far as an exhibit building, and I would no longer use those two buildings for that purpose.
How?
Put the money in it to correct it, use it as storage.
About how much do you think it'll cost, Dan?
It's really just a cosmetic. I don't think you could get it perfect. It's built like a pole barn, and the sagging that's occurring isn't so much a structural problem, but cosmetic. The buildings are starting to lean, and you're not going to fix that. I mean, it'd just be a cosmetic thing, and maybe spend $10,000 and do the best you can with them, but they're not worth the. If you actually brought them up to where they should be, you couldn't do it.
That's what I think.
Jeff?
Seems to me like the last few years, we started to invest more in the fairgrounds down there to make it nicer and better. And in looking at the whole layout of everything, I would rather spend some time with the city of Downey and work out something where the grounds down there can be turned into something better than they are. And so I say we get rid of them, and if we need storage that badly, then let's look at another small storage building or something. But I'm just not happy with them and the direction we're going. We're making the place better, and I don't see how that helps make the place better just by putting lipstick on the pig.
Did Scott say what he wants to store in there?
Well, they have all kinds of stuff in there right now. And
I haven't been in.
And part of the discussion was, we're building this nice, beautiful facility to go stick a bunch of old fair stuff in it. And that's what he said. He said, it's just storage, it's always valuable. John?
Well, I have a couple of things. It sounds like if we're gonna need storage, this is probably the least expensive way to do it, is just fix the facade. And then, would you agree with that?
It's just the facade.
Yeah, and that would be the least expensive option, to have some additional storage, would be to do that. And then beyond that, though, I know we've had some discussion about, who owns which land and all this kind of stuff. And so I would just want to get that figured out at some point. Who's going to do what, who's going to be responsible for what, get that all settled. And I think that'll help with some of these other discussions.
And I have talked with legal counsel, and he has advised that these two buildings are the county's.
Right.
So. I'd like you to go down and look at it and give us an estimate.
Okay.
And see what it is to utilize it, and then go from there.
But to me, we're just kicking the can down the road again. Let's make a decision and go forward, because do we want to make that place nice or not? And I don't think doing that does it. Kyle?
I think I'm a little bit with Commissioner Huff on that. We've got the new building that's supposed to be, we're still working on getting in, that we have the concrete out there for. We just did a new covered area for the arena, and this new building that we're looking at, and to move forward and not lower the look of the place, we have the ability to pretty cheaply demo them out, clean that up. Is it worth it to keep them? But I haven't looked at them close enough.
I can't remember the square footage of those buildings.
Oh, man, they're pretty big. They're, gosh, what do you think, Hal? Over 100 feet long and probably 36 feet wide. And again, if you had the money to invest and put in a new storage building there, I would tear them down too. But if you don't,
So why not make that plan and do that the next year or two? Tear them down now, okay?
make the commitment.
One of them's empty,
Yeah.
so that's not, we're not losing anything there. We're not using it right now. I don't know what's in the other one, if there is much in it.
Not much.
So we're not losing really anything, and we make the commitment, then in the next year or two, we replace it with some kind of storage facility that looks nice, improves the facility. And again, if we meet with Downey and can work out some other things to change the grounds around a little bit, then maybe we need something different than what's already there.
You said that you talked to the attorney and we own both the buildings, but isn't some of the land owned by the city?
The land has a right of way.
Yeah. I really think we ought to get somebody down there to get these land issues all settled and finalized before because, I don't want to end up in a situation where we're building stuff on someone else's land and that type. Just get that established, and then I think it makes any decisions going forward a little bit easier.
And I would be happy with that, because we're moving down a direction to improve the facility as a whole, which allows us to make a better decision, so.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time before those things start leaking and everything else. It's just, it would be a constant maintenance issue. But from a safety issue, I just, today would rather them not use that as an exhibit building.
Well, and it's not an exhibit,
Yeah.
There won't be Bible camp people staying in there overnight, and there won't be some of these things that have happened in the past. Well, we're gonna have another discussion here in just a minute about facilities master plan.
Well, I guess what I would propose then is maybe we invite the Downey mayor and city council down and have an on-the-record discussion of what to do with all those grounds and proposal with the land to square that up. Because then we can have a better discussion, long-term, what we want to do down there, based on what the land issue looks like.
Okay, well, we set aside $100,000 to tear that down. So that money, I would propose that we utilize it in the new structure. If we're gonna do this in-house, how much would it cost to do this in-house?
It won't be nowhere near 100,000. You'll be using your McCammon landfill services and a truck and an excavator and a couple operators.
I
So
just
are
need
you
to-
suggesting go ahead and tear it down now, or?
No, I'm just saying that I would like to kind of designate that $100,000 so that we know as we look at the bids coming in on this other. So we had 500,000 to put towards new barns, $1 million to put towards the new building, and $100,000 to put towards tearing this down. So I just, to kind of give us and Christie an idea of where these funds are going to be designated.
Well, how quickly can we get down in here for that discussion? 2 weeks?
You give us a time and I'll have them there. Do you want to hold it during the day though?
We can do it in the evening, I don't care.
Well, we can go down there. I wouldn't mind going down there, taking Nancy with us. We take the map, we walk it, we look at it, everybody has the same picture.
I think that's a great idea.
I think that's a good idea.
And you're gone next week, so the following week,
Yeah,
let's plan in 2 weeks.
Okay.
We'll go down there, and if it's in the evening or whatever, we can plan that.
And who's going to get us these maps and drawings of who owns what and all that stuff?
we have all that.
I just saw Hal's hand go.
Okay, so is that easy for you to get your hands on that? So I'd like that as soon as possible, so I can at least look at it, not just go down there and then be wondering who owns what.
If we have it to you by no later.
Sorry?
If we have it to you by no later than Tuesday of next week, will that suffice for your time frame?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You're way ahead of me.
All right. But I'd like to, we can go down there and look and start this, but I really want to designate where this other, basically 500 or, well, we have just about 500, right? Because the building,
1,000 budgeted, we only need 65 potentially for coast to coast. We've already paid the concrete and all those costs, so we left 100,000 at 5 for the building that hopefully shows up one of these days. Then that leaves 400 there, and then we have the 100 to tear down the building.
so,
So
just
where are you putting this 100,000?
in the building that we're
The
building.
new
down there,
building.
The
The
new
$1 million
building.
one.
Okay, so you're gonna make a motion to move that to
Well,
that account or something? Is that
That's
we're
what
doing?
I would, that's the discussion here. That's what I'd like to see us designate that, because we just kind of have that sitting out there.
Right, right.
Waiting to see what's going on. And I don't think that we have the time now to tear down more buildings.
Right, right.
And replace them with a barn.
So we could get that money reallocated.
But,
Seems reasonable to me.
and that may be part of the discussion you want to have. I mean, we could put up a metal building for storage, but I would like to kind of ease Christie's concerns about where these funds are going to go, because they're just kind of
Is that
sitting there.
100,000 ARPA related?
Yes. All this.
so it's the-
1.6 is all
So
ours.
does the 2 weeks cause you stress, or?
No, I just, as long as we're actually, like you like to say, moving forward on something rather than just kicking it down the road.
I'll push. I'll push.
But honestly, I don't know that those monies, I mean, if we're not gonna tear down the building, if there's no rush to tear down the building, we have money sitting in the hill that we could spend anytime and allocate anytime throughout '25. But if we think this building is gonna come in at more than 1 million,
Well, I have concerns a little bit about this building. I think we're going to come in really pretty close. Dan, Hal? I think we're going to be really close, but there may be a little lipstick we want to put on that picture. Just once we get it there and realize some of the stuff in the interior, do we want some tables, do we want some chairs? I mean, it's stuff like that is going to be part of the building that I don't think that we've factored in right now.
and honestly, if we could keep the big ticket items in ARPA for reporting purposes, that's a little bit cleaner. Because then we're gonna be talking about movable items which are not capital, and currently that building is capital.
Okay.
So those are more items it sounds like we need to discuss and.
And then we should be within a week or so getting the bids on the school. And I'm concerned about a little cost overrun there too. And so these extra funds, I'd just like to designate, have us thinking about it anyway. So. All right, we good on that? We'll meet in 2 weeks, down and down.
So are you gonna make a motion on this 100 grand, or we're just waiting until later?
We'll wait. If she's okay right now,
All right.
okay?
Yep.
Everybody else good? All right. Discussion pertaining to use of county funds for grant applications. Dan, you can't be running off.
Here, sit here for the.
Go ahead and sit there for a minute, but we're going to talk about facilities master plan here in just a little bit. So,
Charity Stagg, Southeast Idaho Council of Governments. So as your agenda item says, here to have a discussion about the CCOG Bannock County grant writing contract and if it can be used for grant writing for other entities. And depending on how that discussion goes, there is a request for the county to cover half of the grant writing fee for a CDBG grant for Aramo to get a brush truck and half the fee for a CDBG grant for Lava Hot Springs to develop a drinking water well.
I have mixed, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna make sure that I'm clear with what we're talking about today, because our original discussion with CCOG was that we would set up grant writing with them, and then anytime a grant came up, we would pay the cost to write that grant, correct?
Yes.
We did not discuss if McCammon or Lava or Airmo wanted to, that they could jump on that contract. Or we did discuss that they could jump on that and get kind of the same price for services, but it did not include us paying for any of their services. Is that correct, Charity? Is that how you understood that? Or,
Understood it a little bit differently, but
okay.
it would be nice if we can clear that up.
My understanding when we wrote that, signed that contract, was that those were for county departments to be able, that Charity was going to work with county departments to find grant opportunities that departments didn't bring to us. This is expanding the scope to allow us to pay for taxing districts to get grants written, which they're their own taxing entities and should be self-sufficient. We don't usually pay for
Right,
those
right.
items, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was my understanding as well. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with where we started this conversation and where we're at today. And so the question is today is, do we let, or do we, as the county, pre-fund some of their grant writing for some of these other entities, the taxing districts?
I think that there's no way, personally. We don't pay, my thought, I saw this on the agenda, my thought went to the water that we helped pay for a few weeks ago, and I think that's a very different situation. In my mind, at first, it was similar, but it's really not. They are their own taxing entity, and if they need to figure out how to pay for themselves to fund their payment to CCOG if they're going to apply for grants. We don't want any part of management of grants or oversight of the grants for other taxing districts, and I just don't see how it is a responsibility of the county to fund other taxing entities, especially cities.
And these two grants, just to be clear, did not ask for us to be the grant facilitate manager, yeah.
Yeah, the
It was
applicant.
just to
Yeah.
help them with the application process, and then we walk away.
They just want the
And-
contribution to have CCOG do the work.
Correct.
But your position wouldn't change based on that?
No.
What are the two contracts again?
It would be this community development block grant for the city of Aramo to purchase a brush truck for the fire department.
A what? A brush truck?
Yeah, a fire truck.
Oh, okay.
So why do they need us?
Could Wes help with that? Through his
Yeah.
contract with you?
Well, that one's over, but it could have if it was continuing. And that does open up another question of what about fire districts? Like cities, I understand could be a very hard ask, but fire districts,
They're their own taxing.
They're
entity.
alone.
Yeah,
They
it's
levy
the
plenty
same.
of money.
It's no different, really.
gotcha.
And what was the second one?
Oh, a drinking water well for the city of Lava Hot Springs.
So, back to my question then. Why do they need us? Is there a specific reason in the grant that requires this to be asked of a county? Or is it just they don't have the money, or?
It allows them to, allows their funds to go further, but there is no requirement in the grant to get the county involved.
I think it's their business then.
But I go back to when Downey Canal Company come to us and wanted us to facilitate their grants. And we turned that down. And that's what it's really tough to integrate cities, counties, and taxing districts, in my opinion. I don't think that we want to take that burden myself.
And to be clear, I'm not advocating for this, just Charity asked me about it, and I kind of at first went, okay, that's worth talking about. So that's why we put it on the thing. And so
Right.
I'm not advocating, I'm just here to have a discussion.
It's certainly one of those things, like you want to be a team player and play ball with everybody and make everybody better, but there has to be some onus on those entities. They are their own taxing districts, and if they want that next year, they need to figure out how to budget for it and cut down some of their other costs somewhere so they can do a project here or there, or pay CCOG to do this grant, or figure out how to get it another way.
John attends CCOG meetings now. I used to, and I mean, half of those meetings is talking about all these other cities and stuff that got their grants and what they did with it and stuff. And so there's been a lot of success in people using CCOG and utilizing the availabilities. But I think that, I just don't think it's the county that needs to step in and be the middleman in this situation.
We don't want to become the federal government of our county and of our area, where if you need our help, you come to us and we'll dish out our taxpayer money for specific entities when they're their own taxing district.
Anything else?
Well, you know, I didn't like the water payment for the other taxi district, so. Yeah, if it's a county project, I think we do county projects, and the other entities should have their, you know, their separate contract for whatever it is they're doing.
It's okay by me. Like I said,
It's a good question.
It was an interesting
It really-
question.
It's a good question.
Well, everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to improve our area, no doubt about it. But the responsibilities lie within those that are elected in those areas.
Yeah, and I'm really, these monies that we've allocated to, that we've dedicated towards CCOG to doing stuff, I really am hopeful that we're gonna see some significant projects at least attempted with the different departments within a county to get some of this grant money, so.
Sure.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
so much.
Are you up, Kyle? Buddy?
Just tell me which one.